I have a reading for you from our book of the month, The Sermon on the Mount by Emmett Fox. We listen with our spiritual ears. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. On the surface, this beatitude seems to have very little meaning. And what there is seems to be obviously contradicted by the plain facts of everyday life. No sensible person, on looking about the world or studying history, could sincerely accept this saying at its face value. Now, either Jesus meant what he said or he did not. And either he knew what he was talking about or he did not. The fact is that when correctly understood, the teaching of Jesus is found to be not only true, but exceedingly practicable. Indeed, it is the most practicable, practicable of all doctrines. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. We notice that there are two polar words in the text, meek and earth. First of all, the word earth in the Bible does not necessarily mean this terrestrial globe. It really means manifestation. Your earth means the whole of your outer experience. And to inherit the earth means to have dominion over that outer experience. That is to say, to have power to bring your conditions of life into harmony and true success. Dominion, that is, that power over the conditions of our lives, is to be obtained in a certain way, and in that most unexpected of all ways, by nothing less than meekness. What? The true significance of the word meek in the Bible is a mental attitude for which there is no other single word available. It is this mental attitude which is the secret of success. It is a combination of open-mindedness, faith in God, and the realization that the will of God for us is always something joyous and interesting and vital, and much better than anything we could think of for ourselves. This state of mind includes a perfect willingness to allow this will of God to come about in whatever way divine wisdom considers best, rather than in some particular way that we have chosen for ourselves. If we desire to inherit the earth, we must absolutely acquire meekness. I'm going to read through today's affirmation, and then I'll invite you to stand and declare it with me. My world is filled with the glory of God. I am open, teachable, and cultivate the simple faith that divine intelligence is always at work in my life, calling forth all that is perfect for me. As I surrender to this perfect unfolding, life gets better and better every moment, every day. I am grateful God is good. Please stand and join me, declaring this affirmation with confidence. It is also on the card in your bulletin. Shall we go now? My world is filled with the glory of God. I am open, teachable, and cultivate the simple faith that divine intelligence is always at work in my life, calling forth all that is perfect for me. As I surrender to this perfect unfolding, life gets better and better every moment, every day. I am grateful God is good. Do you believe in a loving spirit that is the very air that you breathe? Yes. It's not a guy in the clouds in the sky. What? Sometimes I think that even still I catch myself getting caught up in that vision of God that I was raised in. But what we're talking about now is a principle, aren't we? God is an idea, a principle, an isness. Not a person. Not even an idea. It simply is. It is the nature of all things, and all things have sprung from it, and all things return to it. And we are called to remember the truth. Remember that we belong to God. Remember that we belong to this isness. And we get so caught up in our daily life of being about doing things that we forget to be something. Or at least I do. Probably not you guys. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. You see, what we're talking about this summer is the blissitudes. We are talking about ways, ideas, concepts, characteristics that we can incorporate into our daily life to bring us forward into a greater sense of bliss. And we've coined those to be blissitudes, the Beatitudes from the New Testament. Jesus went up to the mountaintop. That is, he set himself in consciousness at the mountaintop. And he said, listen, I have some teachings for you. And one of them is, blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Now, I don't know about you, but meek is not a characteristic I have been all about cultivating in my life. Because, in our culture, and the way we define that word, it kind of means overly submissive. How many of you had to read Charles Dickens in college and you learned about Uriah Heep, who was so falsely humble, but was really morally not very present to the good of life, and not really a very nice man? And we tend to think of that, and his phrase was, I am just meek, I am so meek. And we tend to think that meek means that sense of overly submissive, and perhaps even maybe using that meekness, that overly submissiveness, to manipulate others. Yes? Do you want to be that? No, me either. Do you suppose that's what Jesus meant? I'm thinking not. He either knew what he was talking about or he didn't. I'm going to place my money that he did. So let's look at what he really said. He was probably teaching in either Aramaic or Greek. Greek was kind of the scholarly language of the time. So let's look at the Greek word for meek. Are you ready? Praeus is the Greek word for meek. Gentle, humble, teachable. What? Blessed are the gentle, the humble, the teachable, the available. And get this, you guys, are you ready? Praeus is the same word the Greeks used to describe a tamed stallion. That's pretty interesting. What good is a tamed stallion? A tamed stallion is of service to its master. Yes? A tamed stallion is powerful and strong, and a tamed stallion knows how to use that strength in service to its master. Maybe I might want to be a little meek. If it means gentle, humble, teachable, in service to something greater than I am, taming the wildness of my thoughts and ideas, my undisciplined thinking, such that I can be of service to something greater than I am. Are you with me? Yes. I want that. How about you? Yes. Hallelujah, brothers and sisters. We're going to have some church. Bottom line, meek ain't weak. It's right there, isn't it? Meek is powerful. It is humble. It is gentle. But it is powerful, and it is powerful in a way that is beyond measure. Emma Curtis Hopkins, she says, I am a power of strength to the universe in which I live. I want to be strength for something good. The universe in which I live, I want to serve the universe in which I live. And I am talking here about God quality power, not human quality power, right? Just like we talk about not a God up in the sky, a human personification, right? We're not talking about human personification of power. I have the power to fire you, and I have the power to hurt you, and I have the power to lift you, and I have the power. That's human power. We're not talking about that kind of power, are we? We are talking about God quality power, the kind of power that can scatter stars about the heavens, the kind of power that can burn suns, the kind of power that can create us, the kind of power, the complexity of the human body and our ecosystem and the entire planet, everything that inherit the earth. All that which surrounds us and which we live in, that power has created all of this. Now don't mistake me, I'm not talking creationism like it happened 4,000 years ago, God plopped it down as it is. Are you clear about that? I'm talking about an infinite intelligence and mind that could evolve into what we see around us. That's some awesome power. Maybe I really want to be kind of meek. I think I'd like to have that kind of power in my life. Quiet, calm, centered, strong, in service to something greater than I am, under the wisdom and guidance of this something that is greater than I am, useful to the world in which I walk. Useful. See, this is spiritual strength. And in the reading, you heard Emmett Fox talk about what are the three kind of attitudes that we must cultivate in order to live from this kind of strength. He said, are you ready? Remember this? He said we must be open-minded. He said we must have faith in God. And we must be willing to allow God to show up however God shows up. I don't know about you. Sometimes I'm not in love with how God's showing up. But we'll get there in a minute, all right? So these are the three qualities that if we cultivate and embody these qualities, we step into a greater earthly power. We inherit our good right here on earth, and we are able to be of service to something greater than we are. So let's talk about each one of these habits or qualities or ways of being that will bless us into a place of true meekness. The first one was that we have to be open-minded. We have to be teachable. Dang. I kind of hate this one, you guys. I'm kind of attached to my way of seeing the world, to my way of doing things. But if I truly want to be humble and gentle and teachable, I have to be willing to open my mind to new ideas, to new ways of looking at the world. I want to ask you right now, what do you believe in? What do you believe in? Most of us believe in what we believe. But what if instead of believing in what we already believe, what if we took the opportunity to believe in our infinite potential? What if we took the opportunity to believe that there is something greater than we are, and I only limit it by believing in what I only believe, and what I already believe, and if I want to open up to the infinite potential of the universe, I need to let go of what I believe in. And I need to let go of what I believe in. And I need to be teachable and humble and willing before God to get a new thought, to be transformed by the renewing of my mind. Wow. We're going to get to the surrender one in a minute. I have to be willing to evolve rather than staying stuck in what I already believe. Now, how do I do this? Well, I mean, you're doing it right here and right now. Good work. Give yourselves a hand. You're showing up in spiritual community with an open mind and an open heart, evidencing to the universe your willingness to be transformed. And your willingness is your worthiness. If you show up as willing, you are worthy of transformation, and I guarantee you, you will be transformed. You will leave here a different person. You show up here. You participate here. You take classes here or somewhere else. You evidence to the universe, yes, I'm willing to be transformed. I'm willing to be made new. I'm willing to say yes to the potential that I am, to a greater idea for my life, and I'm going to show up, and I'm going to sign up, and I'm going to have an open mind. You know what just cracks me up is when people sign up for stuff and their minds aren't open to receiving it. I love it. I get it. I can register for this, spend lots of money. Not willing, but showing up. I'm doing my work. The prerequisite is an open mind. Gentle, humble, teachable, truly meek, willing to show up, to engage in our spiritual practice, to show the universe through our willingness to spend, just call it 10 minutes a day with God, dedicated spiritual practice. 20 is a little better. But if you just can't do it, do you hear that thing about you should meditate at least 20 minutes a day unless you don't have time, in which case you should meditate for an hour? Be humble, be teachable. If I had a nickel for every person who told me, I've been at this for years, I don't need to take any more classes. I don't need to study anymore. I know what it's like. You know what? I've been at this for years too, and I am only an egg, you guys. I don't know what the endless potential is. I invite you to look back 5 years ago in your life and where you were and where you are today. Did you have any idea then that you could be where you are today? And if you're struggling right now, I invite you to, yes, be, because God is the isness, but also remember, in 5 years it will be different. In 5 years it will be different. We'll talk a little bit more about that. So our first way of being that cultivates real meekness is to be open-minded, to be teachable, to be available to a bigger idea, that bigger idea being how we can be of service to the infinite life that we call God. Second way to make ourselves more useful to the master, if you will, is to be, how Emmett Fox said it, he says we have to have faith in God. How I want to say it is we have to stay faithful to the principles. We have to stay faithful to the principles that we teach. About 10 years ago, I had a pretty difficult time with ministry. I was ready to walk away. I was really in a deep, dark place. And my mentor at the time, we'd been on the phone for like 45 minutes, and I was crying, and I was kind of telling all my story and being real attached to the facts. And when she could finally get a word in edgewise, she said to me something that renewed my mind in a moment. She said, Marla, if you stay faithful to the principles, God has something for you. Let me say that again. If you stay faithful to the principles, all y'all, God has something for you. And you know what God had for me? This. Whatever it is for you, God has something greater for you. Your this lies in your infinite potential. Stay faithful to the principles. It can't help but end up in your inheriting the earth, the earthly manifestation of the blessing in your life. God's power is my power, because there's only one life. God's power is your power because there's only one life. But in order for me to manifest that power and that grace and that love of God in my life, I must stay faithful to the principles. I must be open and teachable, and I must practice. And so must you. So we must stay faithful to the principles that we teach and know. And the third thing he says, and he says it the really long way, the way I say it is we must be willing to allow God to show up as it does. And if we say that God is all there is, that means all there is God. Whatever's showing up, there is something divine and perfect and complete in that. Yes? If I am pushing back against that, I am pushing back against the divine, and the divinity just wants to find a way to express. And what we resist persists, right? And so as I push back, I'm actually just creating more of that in my life via the law of attention and all those other spiritual principles that we're staying faithful to. So stop it. Accept, surrender, release your attachment to the way you think things should be and get present to the way they are so that you can inherit all the good. I have a great example from this week. You know what happened this week? Somebody stole our trailer out of our parking lot. Many of you know this, some of you don't yet. Somebody stole the trailer that was full of stuff for the sale we were going to have yesterday. Somebody stole the trailer that had a hitch lock on it in our parking lot. I drove up on Wednesday morning. I was like, Susan moved the trailer? And I got out of my car, and Ralph was walking around the parking lot. He's going, Mar, where's the trailer? I called Susan. I said, did you move the trailer? And there's this long silence. And I knew that she had not moved the trailer. And you know, my first kind of human response was like, and I took a deep breath. And I anchored in a new thought. God is showing up for me this morning as an empty parking lot. Can I accept this and be willing to be in the presence of this and ask myself what it has to teach me and to teach us as a community? Can I bless those who found themselves in such need for some sort of satisfaction that they broke the hitch and somehow chained up our trailer and drove off with it? Can I engage in compassion for people who would do something like that? Can I know that there is a greater good for our community in this experience? And for the first 24 hours, I kind of moved in and out of that. It took me a while, remember? Practice. It took me a while to tame the wild stallions of my mind that wanted to blame and shame somebody and be mad. But in order for me to be useful to the Master, to the greater good, to the greater God, I must tame those ideas and practice a higher thought, a higher way of being. And I invite you into that practice with me, because the more of us that are doing that about our little trailer theft, the more powerful it's going to be. The more good we're going to manifest as a community out of this experience. We can accept it for what it is, without judgment, without shame, without blame, and simply know that there is something in this for us. We be present to the experience. We allow it to teach us. Wait a minute, wasn't that number one? Hang on, let me check my notes. Oh yeah, open-mindedness, teachable, humble. What? The surrendered state is the state of willingness, of allowing, of growing. And that doesn't mean you don't do what needs to be done in the world, right? We called the police, we made a report. Next week we'll do the insurance stuff. You're going to hear more about that later, just so you know. Next week we'll do all the insurance stuff and kind of see what needs to. So I'm not saying you don't do in the world what needs to be done, but let's not get all engaged with the negative story about it. See, that's our culture thing. That's our culture thing. I don't want to be about that. I want to be in service to a greater idea. I want to be humble, meek, teachable, available to the universal principle of love. And as I stay faithful to that principle, I am made new. And so are you. I'm not doing anything that somebody else in this room can't do and that millions of people haven't done before. We just have to choose to be about it. Blessed are the meek. Blessed are the humble, the gentle, the teachable. For in that lies our strength. And we shall inherit the earth. We embody these principles. We remember that meek ain't weak. We live into our spiritual potential by embodying humility and teachableness, staying faithful to the principles, and surrendering to what is, lifting it to a bigger idea. Shall we practice a little bit? In the fertile valleys of our minds, where all that we experience is created, let's turn within and open our hearts and minds to a greater idea. We recognize that there is only one life, the living one, the power, the presence, the love of God, the infinite potential that goes by, so many names. We anchor our awareness right here and right now in this, recognizing that we are at one with all of this. The universal heartbeat is our heartbeat now. The universal breath is our breath right here, right now. We cannot be separate. We cannot be divided. We are an infinite wholeness right here and right now. And so it's in this consciousness that I simply invite you to bring to mind a place in your life in which you are ready to receive a healing. A place in your life that is perhaps calling forward some physical discomfort in your earthly experience, some mental discomfort, some emotional discomfort. Just bring that into your awareness. And ask yourself this question. Around this thing, this condition, this circumstance, am I teachable? Am I open-minded? Am I willing to have a new thought about how it could be? Ask yourself, am I willing to see this experience as a stepping stone to my infinite potential? Am I willing to surrender to things the way they are, such that they can be lifted and transformed by the infinite mind and heart of God? Am I willing to stay faithful to the principles we teach, such that I may have a greater experience of life? And I invite you now, if the answer is yes, yes, I'm willing to be transformed. I'm willing to be meek before the Almighty, to tame my life, to discipline my life, such that I may experience the good that God is. If your answer is yes, simply declare that right now in the silence of your heart, your mind, your body. Feel that yes. Feel every cell in your body vibrate with the infinite yes. Declare it and know it. And if it's not a yes, know that it is not a yes yet. Simply declare your willingness to explore the opportunity to say yes, to be transformed. Be willing. Your willingness is your worthiness. Show up, participate, and be transformed. And so it's in this consciousness that we declare in song our willingness to remember who we are, our willingness to remember the spiritual truth,
I am remembering who I am. 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 I am remembering. I am remembering who I am. I am remembering who I am. I am remembering who I am. I am remembering who I am.
And so, by the grace of the infinite, we remember, and we allow, and we surrender. And I close this message with a grateful heart. And so it is.